There are four chambers or openings in the heart. Two of them are called atria. Singular is atrium, plural is atria. There's a right atrium and a left atrium, and these are the superior chambers. And these chambers receive blood that is delivered to the heart through veins. The atrium on either side is connected to another chamber called a ventricle. So there's a right ventricle and a left ventricle. And the ventricles are the inferior chambers, and they're responsible for pumping blood out of the heart through arteries. Now, the heart we call it a double pump system, and that's because there are kind of two circuits that the blood travels through as the blood is entering and leaving the heart. So you can see on the image here that the right side of the heart and the left side of the heart are not connected to each other. So the blood in the right side does not mix with the blood on the left side. So on the right side of the heart, it sends it sends blood that does not have a lot of oxygen to the lungs, where at the lungs, the blood drops off carbon dioxide and picks up oxygen. That oxygenated blood is returned to the left side of the heart, where it goes to the left atrium and then the left ventricle. And then from the left ventricle, it leaves the heart, and that oxygen-rich blood goes to the other body systems to deliver oxygen. So at the other body systems, you have these capillary beds. At the capillary beds, the arteries drop off oxygen and pick up carbon dioxide. And that deoxygenated blood goes back to the right side of the heart, where it's then sent to the lungs to drop off carbon dioxide and pick up oxygen. And then it goes back to the left side of the heart, where it gets pumped back out to the body again. So you can see that it kind of makes a figure eight with regards to the flow of blood, where it leaves the heart and then comes back and then gets sent to somewhere else. So we call the two circuits the pulmonary circuit. Pulmonary refers to the lungs. And then the systemic circuit, which refers to the blood going everywhere else. And in this picture here, it's only showing one capillary bed, but in reality, the aorta, which is the major artery that carries oxygenated blood through the systemic circuit, would branch off into multiple smaller arteries that would go to specific tissues and organs in the body. So for example, there might be an artery branching off here going to the left kidney. There might be another artery branching off over here that would go to the liver. And then each one of those tissues or organs would have its own capillary bed where gas exchange happens. And then all of that blood converges into veins where it gets sent back to the heart. So as we mentioned, the right side of the heart, and if we're looking at this picture here, remember that this is looking at a patient. So the right and left refers to the patient's right and left and not yours. So this is the right side of the heart and this is the left side. So the right atrium and the right ventricle contain what we say deoxygenated blood. There's still some oxygen in this blood, but it's lower in oxygen and higher in carbon dioxide than the more oxygenated blood. So we just say deoxygenated. So from the right side of the heart, the blood gets sent to the lungs where the carbon dioxide gets dropped off and oxygen gets picked up. That oxygenated blood from the lungs returns to the heart, to the left side of the heart, into the left atrium, and then that blood goes to the left ventricle where it's pumped out through the aorta and it drops off oxygen at the body tissues and picks up carbon dioxide. And blood between the two sides of the heart don't mix. You can imagine that if they did mix, it would kind of dilute the amount of oxygen that was in the blood, and it wouldn't be as efficient. So this system is a very, very efficient way for our body to handle bringing in oxygen and kind of getting rid of carbon dioxide. Now, we're going to take a look at some of the major blood vessels that are directly attached to the heart. And before we do so, we have to talk a little bit about the difference between veins and arteries. So veins always deliver blood to the heart, and arteries always carry blood away from the heart. It's a common misconception that veins always carry deoxygenated blood and arteries carry oxygenated blood, but that's not always the case. So it's better to think of arteries carry blood away. So you can think about artery starts with an A, the word away starts with an A. And so arteries carry blood away from the heart, and veins deliver blood to the heart. So we're going to start with the veins. The major veins that deliver blood to the heart. To the right side of the heart, we have the superior vena cava and the inferior vena cava. And basically everything from the upper half of your body drains into the heart through the superior vena cava, and all the blood from the lower part of your body drains into the heart through the inferior vena cava. And both of these blood vessels are attached to the right atrium. The other veins attached to the heart are the pulmonary veins. And these are the veins that are coming from the lungs, because remember, pulmonary means lungs. And they're delivering blood to the left atrium. And this is one example where veins don't always carry deoxygenated blood. So if we look at the vena cava, both of them, as we can see by the blue color that they put on this picture, both of them carry deoxygenated blood, but the pulmonary veins, they're still bringing blood to the heart, but they're carrying oxygenated blood. Because remember, they picked up oxygen in the lungs, which they're bringing to the left side of the heart so that it can be shipped out through the aorta. The main arteries attached to the heart are the aorta, which is this one right here. This is the main artery that's carrying oxygenated blood through the systemic circuit. The other artery is called the pulmonary trunk, and the pulmonary trunk branches into the left pulmonary artery and the right pulmonary artery. And this is another example where the aorta carries oxygenated blood, but the pulmonary trunk and pulmonary arteries carry deoxygenated blood. But both of them are arteries because they're carrying blood away from the heart. Now, if we look at the walls of the heart has its own serous membrane called the pericardium, or the pericardial sac. And there are several layers associated with this pericardium. And remember that the function of serous membranes is to help to separate an organ from another organ and also reduce friction between an organ and the adjacent organ. So you can imagine your heart's beating, on average 75 times per minute. Meanwhile, your lungs are right next door and they're inflating and deflating, and that could cause a lot of friction if you didn't have a pericardium. And the lungs also have their own serous membrane as well, so that helps too. So the different layers of the pericardium, first of all, there is a tough fibrous outer pericardium, and this helps to kind of protect the heart and really just anchor it in place. And then the serous pericardium itself has the two layers that are standard in all serous membranes. You've got the parietal layer, which is kind of up against the body cavity wall. And then you've got the visceral pericardium, and visceral means organ. And so the visceral pericardium is right on the surface of the heart. So this is the myocardium, this is the heart muscle here. And the visceral pericardium is the layer that is on the surface of the heart. And this layer is also called the epicardium. In between the visceral pericardium and the parietal pericardium, you have the pericardial cavity, which is filled with serous fluid. This serous fluid kind of acts like oil in your car to help reduce friction between the two layers as the heart beats and changes shape and size. If we take a look at some other structures associated with the heart, first of all, we've got auricles, we have one auricle associated with each atrium. The auricle gets its name because it kind of looks like an ear, maybe like an elephant's ear or something. And this is just an ear-shaped extension of each atrium. So when an atrium fills up with blood, the auricle can hold a little bit more blood in order to increase the volume of blood that can be held by the atrium. There are also some sulci, or grooves, that are on the surface of the heart that serve as landmarks for internal structures. So, for example, on the anterior side of the heart, you have the anterior interventricular sulcus. And so sulcus kind of tells you that it's a little bit of a ravine. And you can see here that there are blood vessels that kind of run along that ravine. And interventricular tells you that it's between the two ventricles. So this is an external landmark that tells you that the right ventricle is over here and the left ventricle is over here. There is also a posterior interventricular sulcus, which is on the back side of the heart, and it also separates the two ventricles. So it's another external landmark that shows that the right ventricle is on this side and the left ventricle is on this side. Some additional layers associated with the heart. So I know we talked about the serous, or the pericardium, so the serous membranes, but there's also a couple of layers deeper in the heart as well. So just to recap, you've got your fibrous pericardium and then the parietal pericardium. Then you have the pericardial space, which has fluid. And then you have the visceral pericardium, which is also called the epicardium. Now, if we keep going deeper into the heart, we have this area called the myocardium, and you can see it's pretty thick. And this is the heart muscle that actually contracts in order to move blood throughout the cardiovascular system. And then lining the inside of the chambers and the blood vessels, there is a thin, clear, kind of shiny, smooth layer called the endocardium. Endo means inside. And the endocardium helps to reduce friction with the blood moving through the chambers here. If you recall, if we look at the chambers here, remember that the blood on the right side of the heart does not mix with the blood on the left side of the heart. And so there's actually a myocardium that separates the chambers from each other. So the interatrial septum is kind of blocked on the picture here, but it's between the two atria so that the blood in the left atrium doesn't mix with the blood in the right atrium. And then the interventricular septum here is a wall between the right ventricle and the left ventricle. And once again, this is cardiac muscle tissue, so it's involved in contracting to move blood around the body, but it also creates a barrier between the deoxygenated blood on the right side of the heart and the oxygenated blood on the left side of the heart.